What's up,
What's up,
everybody?
everybody?
How are you doing? Welcome back to the Mindset Mogul podcast. We are your hosts, Josh Jacobs and Brad Mora, and excited to dive into some mindset stuff today. How are you, Brad?
I'm doing great. It's been a good start to the week. Grateful to be here as always, and excited to do an accountability check where I don't get to say that I was 100% doing 75 hard the prior week.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. We're going to do just an accountability check-in episode today. But first, before we dive in, as you guys know, we like to start off with a moment of gratitude. So just take 1 second, think about something you're grateful for. Could be something specific that happened to you this week, or just the fact that you have running water and a meal to eat. So with that being said, if you do get value from today's episode, we would really appreciate it if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, if that's where you're watching, left us a comment. If you have a question for us, you can leave that in a comment or email it into support@mindsetmogul.com. If you're listening on Apple, Spotify, Google, any of those, we would love for you to follow us and leave us a review. Thank you so much for that. We really appreciate it. Now that my advertisement is over, let's jump in. So we're going to talk about accountability this week. I think Brad finished his what would have been 75 hard, and I kind of went off the rails a little bit this weekend. So we were talking a little bit about before we even jumped on the pod, and I'm just going to continue where we left off, Brad. But basically, I was telling Brad how my wife went out of town this weekend, and for some reason, when my wife goes out of town, it's kind of the same thing that happens when I go out of town. I slightly derail and I don't necessarily stick to my diet. I don't necessarily stick to my workout routines. I sometimes drink more than I would because I'm out with friends and doing whatever. And it just makes me not feel great. And I woke up the next morning after, a couple days of this, and I just felt like absolute crap. And it really goes to show why consistency is so important, and long-term gratification is so much more important than short-term gratification, because even though I had fun for a couple hours, I could have had just as much fun without drinking and still been able to wake up early and get my workout in and have fun doing all those things, but also feel great the next day. And it's just every time I do this, it's such a reminder to me how much better of a life it is to not fill myself with toxic chemicals like alcohol and shitty food. So I kind of went off the rails a little bit this weekend. I'm back on track as of yesterday, but man, it's very, very easy to fall off. And it's just a reminder, to never miss 2 days in a row, because as soon as you miss 2 days in a row, it's a lot harder to get back on board. Brad, what about you? I heard you had a fun weekend.
Yep. So it was the last weekend after my what would have been 75 hard was completed. As a quick callback to an earlier episode, I had drinking an artificial sweetener by mistake via a Element hydration packs. They're not paleo. They're not Whole30. It's a warning to anybody that drinks those and thinks that they're part of a clean program. They're definitely pretty good as far as electrolytes go, but did not count as Whole30 for my 75 hard diet. So technically failed 75 hard. I finished out the 75 days keeping to the diet, the water, the reading, etc. But that ended on Friday. And so I gave myself basically the get out of jail free card, the permission to do whatever I wanted over the weekend. And so what ended up happening was I ate half a weed gummy and then had one alcoholic drink. The alcoholic drink, I think I'd been so clean for so long that it just didn't sit well. So I only had the one drink. That didn't really spiral anywhere. But the half a weed gummy had led to these incredible munchies that I had not experienced in a long time. And so definitely ate outside of the diet I had been on for the previous 75 days in a very meaningful way, to the extent that I was like basically uncomfortable through the next day. Then on Sunday, definitely reeled it in a bit, but still was off the diet. Really what this whole thing brought to me was just a moment of clarity on, if I don't have some sort of program in place, there is a lack of direction on what I should and shouldn't do. And on the first day after, I was like, hey, I can do whatever I want. Like, this is a celebration. That's great. There's really, like, that is what it is. But on Sunday, I had gone into the day thinking, okay, I had a bad day yesterday. Let's not have 2 bad days in a row. And that's just, I think, became instinct after doing 75 hard for long enough that I want to just maintain a state of feeling good and being optimal. But on Sunday, I still ended up having like a fried chicken sandwich for dinner. And even though I had made the declaration at the beginning of the day that I was going to stick to what my normal diet plan is now, which is extremely clean, something that looks very close to what I was doing when I was on 75 hard. And so now that's got me this week figuring out what is the right level of structure to have in my life. And I'm talking like I just came up with this. Josh and I were talking about this before the podcast, and I think there's going to be a lot more to build on here. But figuring out what is the right ongoing structure in my life to build the right guardrails so that it's easier to make those decisions. It's like clear to me that if I'm eating a chicken sandwich, if that's a violation of what I'm trying to do or not. Because on that Sunday, I left some ambiguity or made it easy for myself to slide out of doing what I said I was going to do. And really that's the disappointment, is saying you're going to do one thing and doing another. But at the time, it was really easy to make that excuse. So I think I'm at a critical juncture right now, figuring out how to take what I learned from the faux 75 hard and not lose that momentum on continuing to build myself into the best version that I can be.
I have a couple things on that. First of all, hilarious about the munchies, because I was telling you how I stopped eating gummies years ago because I just will literally eat every single item of food in my entire house, whether it's 1,000 calories or 10,000 calories. If I eat a gummy, every single edible piece of food in my house will be gone.
I ate close to 10,000 calories.
So yeah, warning. If you're trying to not eat like shit, don't eat a weed gummy. But, you know, a couple things stood out to me from that. Number one is, I always talk about this, or we always talk about this, is working in challenges. Like I set up my challenge for, you know, the honeymoon 50, like doing 50 days before my honeymoon. But that is really the best way for me to operate, is in specific periods of time and specific challenges. And as soon as, you know, you finish 75 hard and you don't have a program to fall back on, it's very easy to give yourself leniency. And the one other thing that I will say about this is, even though I went off the rails this last weekend, one of the things that helps me a lot is diversifying my goals. So even though I didn't eat healthy, and even though I drank, you know, 2 days instead of 1 day and missed a workout, I still got my gallon of water in. I still got my pages read in. I still got my burpees in. I still got my like little daily strength training stuff that I do regardless of whether I do a full strength training workout or not. Like I still got 50% of my goals done for the day, which is a whole lot better than zero. So it's just something I wanted to pinpoint, of having diversity in your goals, which is kind of like 75 hard, that are completely within your control, gives you a way to mitigate your emotional response to not hitting all of your goals. Because at least if you hit 50%, you don't feel like a complete failure. You still feel like you left a lot on the table, but at least you could check off a couple boxes, versus if you literally only had 2 goals and you didn't hit either one of them, now you're 0 for 2 instead of 5 for 10 or whatever the case may be. And on a level of building confidence, it still helps to check off the more boxes, the better. So just something I wanted to bring up that has helped me a lot in navigating, you know, fucking up.
Dude, that's a very good... It's a good strategy to avoid I don't know if it's a zero sum or a 0 or a 1 mentality, but basically one where it's like you're either failing or you're succeeding. And in a situation where you're not succeeding, you're completely failing, which I've been in that state before. And it is just so easy to completely fall off the wagon for weeks at a time, or just develop an entirely new habit set as a function of saying to yourself, I failed at these goals, therefore what the hell is the point? And then continue down an entirely new path where you don't even prioritize those goals at all because you had just failed at all of them. In this case, it's too narrow of a set. And so I think it's a very different conversation that you're having with yourself when it's like, all right, we got 50% done. Let's now climb back up to 100. You haven't lost all your momentum. It really allows you to stay plugged in to what your bigger picture priorities are, keeping you connected to them. And you're right, leaving you with some confidence, even after a failure, that you knock some things out. And I think it's just so much easier to get back up that ladder when you're like, I'm 50% of the way there versus I'm down and out at 0%.
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of that, one of the things me and Brad were talking about before jumping on the pod is, we want to create a set of standards, essentially the Mindset Mogul standards that me and him are going to stay accountable to and talk about on these accountability pods that we do. And also it's going to be, what do we expect a mindset mogul to be? What characteristics should a mindset mogul encompass? And we're going to create the standards out of that. I don't know what they're going to be yet. We're going to talk about it. We'll talk about it on the pod when we come up with them. But it's going to be a way for kind of just a North Star to have every morning when we wake up. Similar to how 75 Hard gives you that structure and that program. We want to create not our own 75 Hard, but just our own daily standards that we want to live up to every single day, and that we think every single mindset mogul would benefit from living up to these standards. So we'll talk about that, and we'll talk on the next pod on the next accountability pod about what those may be. But I think it's going to be something that's very useful for Brad, me, and you, and anyone watching and following us on these accountability pods in the audience who wants to join along and, set your own standards and kind of do the same thing with us. I mean, that's the whole reason why we started this pod in the first place, is figure out what works for us, share it, and hope we build a community of people that, do a lot of similar things and help uplift each other. So we'll see how that goes, but definitely something that we're going to work on before the next pod. Other than that, it's finally nice out in Chicago, and I am so looking forward to just soaking up the sun on runs along the lakefront. So I feel very motivated, which is rare for me. I never feel motivated, but I feel very motivated when the sun is shining for the first time in like 6 months here. So I'm ready, baby. I'm ready for a good week.
You can't rely on motivation, but when you do have it, it's really nice.
Yeah, that is very true.
You get that pull so you don't have to do that push.
Yeah. All right. Well, anything else that, I know this is short, but anything else that comes to mind about, 75 Hard, ending, working in challenges, our own standards?
I think the message from this episode is simple, or at least the learning that I'm taking away from this conversation is that having clear expectations for yourself set is critical if you want to be moving in any direction. Otherwise, you're just waffling. And that's how I felt the past couple of days. And so I'm extremely excited and feel empowered to build with you what those standards and expectations look like using Mindset Mogul as a framework, because it's scratching my own itch. Like, this is going to be something that I can start using immediately, and that I think I need immediately, so that I'm not backsliding off of all the progress made on 75 Hard. And yeah, I think this is going to be, brother. Yeah, this is going to be critical for me. And I hope that this is something really valuable that we can share with the audience.
I agree. All right, let's leave it at that. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to me and Brad talk about how we screwed up a little bit. But, well, not you. You deserved it, man. You went hard for 75 days. You deserved a little reward for yourself. And it sounds like you didn't go overboard except for the 10,000 calories, which I guess may have been a little overboard. But you know what
Slightly
I mean.
Overboard.
So, all right. Well, thank you guys for listening, watching, tuning in. Please, if you got any value out of this episode at all, if you like listening to us, please just leave a comment, give us a subscription, give us a follow on whatever platform you're listening to. That's how we're going to grow this, and we really, really appreciate you if you do that. And we just appreciate you for listening to us in the first place. So thank you guys. We will see you in the next episode. Have a great day.
Take care.